This week has been absolutely terrifying, and in particular, it's been terrifying in terms of what has happened in real time to the Overton window. Now, if you're not familiar with that term, what the Overton window is it's like the range of opinions which are sort of deemed acceptable publicly. You can think of it as being the range from that's very right wing to that's very left wing. And we know that over time it tends to drift. Things that were once considered outrageous start to be discussed in a more plausible way, and things which were once considered pretty mainstream start to be considered more and more extreme. So, for instance, if you go back a few decades and somebody said they were left wing, you might go, oh, and why do you support communism? And these days, you say you're left wing, and people are like, why don't you want homophobic abuse shouted at children in playgrounds, right? The lines have shifted. We know that. But this week, they've shifted so fast that we can literally see what's going on. Now, there is some really important stuff that we should be talking about in the media and on social media. For example, the fires in the US, the flooding in Spain, and the conversation we should be having is what are we going to do right now to try to prevent further climate change leading to more and more and more of these kinds of disasters and lives being lost, homes being destroyed, all the rest. We're not having that conversation. What we should be talking about right now is Keir Starmer's ongoing support for what Israel is doing in Gaza and other parts of the Middle East, which has been demonstrated beyond all shadow of a doubt to constitute war crimes and genocide. And we've now discovered that the UK is actually using carve-outs, basically saying it's too complicated to decide whether or not arms and military support being issued out of RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus break international law or not. We should be discussing that. We should be looking at our NHS, which is absolutely on its knees. We are already at a point where £10 million a week is being siphoned from British taxpayers through the NHS directly to shareholders in private companies. And meanwhile, Keir Starmer is saying that he's going to press ahead with increasing private sector involvement in our NHS. And he's suggesting that people demanding that it be fully publicly owned are sort of ideologists or extremists in some way, even though what we're asking for is the most sensible, logical thing that history shows is the best way to run a health service in the interests of the people who actually use it. We should be discussing all of those things, and we're not, are we? Here's what we're discussing: whether or not Donald Trump is going to invade Greenland, Panama and Canada. And that's where the sort of right-wing end of the Overton window has gone. Not to like, could government cut its budgets a bit? Would tuition fees go up? And these things that historically have been considered sort of right-wing policies. No, we're talking about whether Donald Trump is going to invade neighbouring countries. That's what we're talking about. And we might be reaching this point where a big win for the left would be Donald Trump doesn't invade Greenland. And that's quite a terrifying prospect. So in that context, we need to be really, really careful about what media sources we're looking at and what we're looking at on social media. Because inevitably that is what drives this Overton window. And that's terrifying because at the same time, we have also now seen the incontrovertible proof that the BBC is hugely, hugely biased towards Israel and has been absolutely failing in its duty to report in a fair and balanced way on what is going on in the Middle East and failing to hold Israel to account for the crimes that we know it is committing. And we've now got Facebook saying that fact-checking is a thing of the past. And they're putting more and more AI bots on there, and they're paying less and less attention to the truth. And we know that when we step away from the truth and let opinion take over, what in fact happens is that those with the most money have the power to drive where opinion goes. And that Overton window drifts further and further to the right, or to the extreme point. It's not even the right, is it? It's fascism, it's extremism of the most terrifying nature, warmongering, planet destroying, normal people having their lives absolutely decimated and torn apart. And we have to reclaim it. And the first step to that, I really believe, is to make sure that we source our news from reliable sources and actually do fact check things ourselves and make sure that we're finding good information and sharing it. And that includes sharing it on social media, sure, but bear in mind that the algorithm is now working against you, so also share it directly, message people. If you're not on my mailing list, please ping me your email, and you will be, and then you'll be in a position to jump off social media and pay less attention to it. And when you see sources of information that are fair and accurate, that are giving good information, make sure that you bookmark them, get on their mailing list, support them financially if you can. We super appreciate your help here. We're doing the best that we can to keep getting out good, unbiased information. See you next week. Increasingly, the mainstream media is terrible at informing the public of what is really going on. I'm only able to make these videos because people are generous enough to sponsor me making them, and if you're able to be a part of that, I would hugely appreciate it. It can cost as little as $1 a month, and you'll get loads of fun bonus content and lots of extras from me, and my undying gratitude. I also massively appreciate it if you're able to like, share these videos and let people out there know what's going on.